Alfre Woodard currently stars in the Apple TV Plus series See. I'm Riley Chow, a contributing editor at Gold Derby. Now, Alfre, you're an Oscar nominee, a four-time Emmy winner. What was different about making this show for you that you had never experienced before in your career?
Um, as a teen, I never went to Outward Bound. I was a Girl Scout for 10 years of my life, and I went to camp every summer. So I loved the outdoors, but I had never been in such a survival mode outside as I was in shooting See. You know, we joked about it, but the part that came easiest to us was acting. You know, just staying alive was the challenge. And how do you tell a story, first of all, under physically demanding locations and atmospheres, and what's required in time of day, and your actual shooting, the shooting slot you have. But how do you tell a story with when we've all been taught that the story is in the eyes? I should probably be looking this way right now, that the story is in the eyes. That's how you communicate. It is even more what you don't say verbally that tells the story or leads you into the viewer to understand a character. But then if you're working in a world where no one has been born with vision for hundreds of years, we said 400 when we started working on it, how do you then tell that story sensorily? So we all had to learn a new language, and we had, of course, we couldn't have even approached that without Joe Strecci, who was our mentor, our teacher, one of our producers, who taught us how to navigate the world without sight. And we had Mary Lee Talkington and Bree Klausner, other actors who have different levels of vision complications, I guess you'd say.
So what did you learn more specifically? Like what was involved in the training and the boot camp for the show?
Holy smokes. Wow. We trained for about a month before we even started. And then we trained, we kept the training going as we shot. And people were training simple things like Paris. You know, when you're working on a character, you find the way that character, you layer it on, how that character walks, how they move, how they see the world, how they express themselves. Well, you add to that. How do you do that? You find your gait, but your gait is, you have a different way of walking if you are navigating without sight. I didn't have fight scenes where I was really having to kick ass, but everybody that had those kick-ass stunts, they had to learn how to not only do the stunts, but again, do those battle scenes. I love the fact that Stephen Knight, our creator and writer, call it the kill dance. So we kept that up like you do any other choreography. I mean, so when one of your senses, one of your five senses, and of course, I think as artists, we have a sixth and a seventh sense as well. But when one of the five senses that we share with civilians is shut down, is blocked, it is believed and is scientifically proven that other senses are heightened, and you learn to navigate that way. Your hearing, your smell, your taste, your touch. So we spent hours and days experiencing that. We started with sleep shades and just, you know, a walking stick to be able to do that. And then, of course, we did that the way you would in a contemporary situation, whether you're in a rural area or in a city. but then once we got to the wilderness, after a month, we had staffs. Our production team was just off the chain in creating this world. You know, we were world building from the blueprint that Stephen Knight gave us in terms of that script, and that Francis Lawrence really led us into the way he envisioned this script. But we couldn't have done any of that without our production designer, our costume design, hair and makeup design. Everything was just vision, and it had to be really possible, and they did that. So, but once they put us in the environment that they created for us, then your stick that you would maneuver, your cane, if you will, became like a big piece of a tree. And so then you'd have to figure out how to do that. And like, you know this because you were out there with me,
Yeah.
Riley, is that it didn't matter whether it was raining, sleeting, snowing. We were up to our butts in mud half the time. So when people were trying to get across the landscape, we didn't have to act that. You just had to, you know, they say action and you would do that. So it was a constant discovery. I probably learned more shooting sea than I've ever learned as an actor and as a human being, I'd say. We learn more quickly and deeply as actors when we let go. It's all about freedom. That's when we get somewhere. It's not so much as piling on stuff, but taking off the layers of learned behavior that starts with us from the time we were little ones all the way up. And the freedom is that my task is to ford the river and not visually see, figure out how to do that with my smell, and how to, and frankly, as the actor, not to hurt yourself, because you know all of our bumps and bruises and cuts and falls, they were there. I mean, it just so the big lesson was a lot of freedom. And it was really, man, that's what you live for, is to experience freedom in between action and cut.
There was so much world building on this show, so much detail in the set, such care was taken with the preparations, as you've talked about. Was there anything that when you actually watched the show, you were a bit disappointed didn't make the cut?
No, I'm laughing because no, you do your work. That's the director and the editor's job. So I never second guess what they're doing, because I don't want them in my business trying to do my stuff. So I know, I never miss things that are not there, but I cackled because I wouldn't even have any idea what wasn't there. Because like I said, your focus, we really lived in that world. I mean, there was this wonderfully crazy period that for 6 weeks straight, we were all in a fishing village on Vancouver Island. And it was Campbell River. It was bigger than a village, but you know, coming from LA, fishing village. And even that was too contemporary. We would still get up at like 2:30 in the morning and drive another hour and a half into the bush. The world, there was world building that went on aesthetically that our production team, and I shouldn't start trying to think of people because I've done several pictures since then, but I've just been in contact with Trish Somerville, who had a big job with our costumes, not only the way they looked, but to keep us all safe and healthy, because you know people had to be in the glacial lake, and in the middle of winter. It didn't matter what was going on. Every single scene we shot was outside in the wilderness. And, you know, we made jokes, but we would drive, you know, different locations all over BC. But when we were outside Vancouver by a couple hours, you know, half hour, we passed the place where they shot The Revenant, and we went another hour and a half, and then up some mining logging roads to where we were going to spend the time. I forgot what you were asking me, but I was talking about how we not only world building, but tribe encouragement. What we really did when we would lose people, it was traumatic. And then when we lost, when we lost our whole tribe, we had a tough time getting over that. The players that were left behind, you get bummed out. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for me, the unsung hero of the show is this man named Paradox Pollock, who was ultimately credited as the cultural designer and supervising movement choreographer. So can you tell me about your work with him and what he brought?
Oh my. So you can give people an alphabet and they can learn the alphabet song. And you can even put the alphabets in a certain order and come up with a story. And actors are full of ingenuity, and they know how to they know how to make themselves available emotionally and physically. But when you're world building, and you're world building for something we can't possibly imagine 600 years in the future, when it is not a future in space the way it has been imagined before, but the future is back to the land, which Stephen told us would be like 5,000 BC, back to the garden kind of thing. Then you need the bridge to walk to how you put your creativity, how it is expressed. You need to discover ritual. You need to discover a tribe, not just like standing there going through motions, but it has to have a history. And that history has had to evolve out of something practical and visceral for the human beings that have come together and kept this tradition. And that's what Paradox did for us. And he had this very perfectly particular background that helped us to do it. What he came from to be able to, because it's movement, but it is consciousness. It is sort of the archeology of creativity, but specific to just us, the alchemy and the different tribes that people were assigned to. I know that sounds, you know, anybody that's ever taken an acting class or a discovery class, you know, it is not civilian chat, but you asked me what it was. You kind of get in that room and he talks you through things, and we're together on the floor and we're discovering things, and we're doing it, figuring a way how to express that without vision the way we would normally do it. And it was, you had those things that artists, especially actors, are not afraid to do, that can look scary and can feel scary if an actor is holding back. But it is joyful, it is painful, it is scary. Is, you know, am I gonna lose it? Will I be able to rein my imagination and my thought process back in? But that's, you know, that's where we live, and that's why we sign up. But Paradox was certainly not only the maestro of those kind of ancient songs we were discovering in our collective imagination, but He was the person that kept the boundaries, so you could trust to go there. A lot of times as an actor, we know when to go there and when to not, because you might be with somebody that, I mean, it's like getting in a plane. You don't hop in a plane with people that are quick to panic or quick or second guess themselves.
And finally, for season 2, you moved over to Ontario. You shot a little bit. What can you tell us about season 2?
I don't know, because I haven't got my marching orders or my gag orders from Apple. What I can tell you is it jumps ahead, but not far. I think. I mean, we were only 3 episodes in when we had to fold up camp. That was really frustrating, but warranted. It'll be interesting when we come back how we do that, because one of the things you want to do when you're shooting is not being self-conscious or conscious of the world as it exists. Even if you're shooting contemporary, you want to stay in your world of the script, of the story. But man, we're going to have one foot on the boat and one foot on the dock, because we're going to have to be constantly paying attention to protocol. Well, that is the opposite. I mean, that's the thing. People do fine work when they can give their total focus to a moment. If you're thinking about anything else, if you are not thinking as alchemy in that moment, and whatever the prescribed sensibilities of the alchemy is at that moment, then you're not doing your job fully. So that's to try to stay in that focus, the way when they shoot a gun and the race starts, whatever you're doing, if you're thinking about, an injury, or if you're thinking about what you're going to do after, if you're thinking who's next to me, if you're thinking something other than just like finish, then that's some energy that's not there. So, but our energy is going to be really in other places while we create now. That's for everybody. So it'll be very, I like a challenge, which is why I signed on to see, but we're going to be challenged more than we have ever been as storytellers and filmmakers. So it's going to be different. It's going to look different. We will have to find a new gauge of how to critically and look at our work and how to aesthetically pull that work off. Just like our world, the world we live in presently will never be the same. It'll be familiar, but it will never be the same. The work we produce in it will never be the same. But what we have to do is to figure out, those of us who are the creatives have to figure out a way to bring an excellence to that new paradigm.
Wow. All right. Well, Alfre, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. We have other interviews with people who made C on our channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your own Emmy predictions.
I'm so happy to see you.